Okay, this is going to be my third attempt to record this video, so hopefully it goes well this time. Okay, this is our lecture on intelligence. I'm going to go talk about what is intelligence, the different theories of intelligence, why some are better than others, like what their strengths and weaknesses are. We're going to look at the different types of intelligence tests. And then here at the end, I'm going to give you some time so you can go take an intelligence test and just kind of play with it and see what you come up with. If you hear really loud noises like that in the background, if that picked up, those are my kids in the back room playing video games while I'm doing this, so just ignore them. All right, so when we think about intelligence, people tend to think about how smart someone is, but that's not necessarily what intelligence is. So it's our ability to learn from our experiences. It's our ability to solve problems, to use knowledge that we already have, and to adapt to new situations. Okay, that's the big broad definition of intelligence. Like I said, other people are going to look at it at from different aspects and have different viewpoints on it, but this is basically what intelligence is. Okay, so there's different ways to measure intelligence. When you take tests, you don't just have IQ tests. There are also things called aptitude tests. The whole purpose of an aptitude test is to predict someone's future performance. So you take a test like the ASVAB that tells you like, oh, well, like these careers would be good for you. Or if you take the SAT or ACT, when you get your results in, you have all these different things that tell you, oh, this is what like you should go into. So they just use the scores, and based on their algorithms and their parameters, it's just supposed to predict, what you would be good at. You also have achievement tests. These are tests that are going to assess anything that you've learned. So your AP test at the end of the year is an achievement test. When you go get your driver's license and you have to take that test, that's an achievement test. The test we'll take over this unit is an achievement test. Okay, so basically any kind of test that you're used to taking is an achievement test. All right, so this is the page in your interactive notebook. And basically it's wanting you to look at the different ways you can assess intelligence. So like I said, a basic intelligence test is going to assess your mental abilities and then compare your results with other people. Aptitude tests, they're just basically looking at future performance based on your scores. And then achievement tests are going to look at what you've already learned. When we get into different types of intelligence, there's lots of different theories. So let's start off with general intelligence. Okay, this is Spearman. So it's also called Spearman's general intelligence. And what he's looking at is your basic intelligence. So your general intelligence, or what he calls a G factor. Okay, where the G stands for general. Excuse me. The G stands for general. So it's at the heart of all of our intelligent behavior. And so you have one general broad intelligence. So that's his view on it. Then you have, hold on, what's this dude's first name? Where is his name? Thurston. I'll find his name here. I'll remember his name here in a second. Who came up with primary mental abilities. And so he feels that your intelligence is composed of 7 primary mental abilities. Okay. So with Thurston's test, he's not going to look at people or rank them on a single general aptitude scale. But like I said, he has his 7 different abilities, and I don't care that you know what they are, but I'm going to tell you what they are anyway. They're word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial ability, perceptual speed, numerical ability, inductive reasoning, and memory. So he gave 56 different tests to people, and that's how he came up with these clusters of tests and to figure out like what your mental abilities are. All right, then we have multiple intelligences, which was developed by Howard Gardner. And he basically felt that you have 8 separate individual intelligences. Okay, so you have linguistic intelligence, which is just like being word smart. Logical mathematical intelligence, which you're really good with numbers and reasoning. There's spatial intelligence, so like picture smart. Bodily kinesthetic. You have musically smart. Intrapersonal. Interpersonal. There's naturalist, and then there's also like the proposed 9th one, which is existential intelligence, which is the ability to ponder the large questions about life, death, and existence. So just here's kind of like the views on Gardner, like if you were an intrapersonal and you had intrapersonal intelligence, like careers you could have, like a researcher, a novelist, an entrepreneur. If you're logical mathematical, that's like engineer, programming, scientist, things like that. So he used that to kind of help guide people and help them figure out like what it is they should probably do for a career. All right, then you have Robert Sternberg, who you have Sternberg's theory, or the 3 intelligence theory, or triarchic theory, or 3-part theory, anything with 3, okay? Which basically your intelligence is divided into 3 ways of processing information. So you have your analytical, which is problem solving, and you're using intelligence tests for that. Creative intelligence, which is innovative smart, so adapting to new situations. And then practical intelligence, which is what you need for everyday tasks. So Sternberg's triarchic. Then we also very, very recently have this concept of emotional intelligence. And that is your ability to perceive, understand, manage, and use emotions. So people who have emotional intelligence are socially aware and self-aware. You can read other people's emotional clues, look at how you're feeling. Like when someone is in a bad mood, you can like help encourage them, that kind of thing. Someone who really doesn't have emotional intelligence, to give you an example, would be Sheldon. Okay, very, very smart, ridiculously high IQ, but can't read emotions. All right, so here are the strengths and weaknesses of each of the different intelligence theories. When I said Sheldon, hopefully y'all realize I meant Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, because I use Sheldon a lot to refer to stuff in this class. So we were talking about Sheldon Cooper, the character from the TV show, The Big Bang Theory. All right, so Gardner's multiple intelligences, a strength with that is that every single ability or skill is of equal importance. There's not really one that's viewed as better than the other. Weakness, when you look at this, are all abilities considered intelligence, or are they more considered talents? Okay. Then with Sternberg, with the 3 different types of intelligence, you can give tests and measure those reliably. You're always going to end up getting the same results. Weakness with that is, can these 3 things actually be used to predict success? So can analytical, creative, and practical intelligence actually predict success? And are they all independent of each other, or are they related? Because a lot of times scores tend to relate to each other, so that could suggest a common G factor, but that's, again, one of the weaknesses, because you can group them and they do cluster. They might not be independent of each other. For emotional intelligence, a strength would be that it does help predict social success and the emotional well-being of a person, but a weakness, and this is something that critics point out, is this really intelligence? Is the ability to read and use emotions considered a way of determining if someone is, intelligent? Then with Spearman, with the G factor intelligence, the abilities that you have do correlate with each other. Okay, so again, this is your basic intelligence. Your abilities do correlate, but we as people are too diverse for a single general intelligence factor. There's too many facets and aspects of people that you can look at to determine intelligence, so that doesn't really work. And then with L.L. Thurston and his primary mental abilities, oops, that's supposed to be Thurstone, not Thursteins. They are very, very informative. Weakness, though, you do have a tendency to cluster, just kind of like with the triarchic theory. And so when you have all these aspects that start to cluster, even though there's 7 of them, that kind of also shows that there is a single G factor involved. All right, so when we look at intelligence tests, we have a couple. Alfred Binet, who in the early 1900s in France, once they started making kids in France go back to school, because they've never had to go to school before in their life, when you start to have mandatory education, comes up with a test that would try to be fair and help assess which children had little prior education or were slow learners. So he came up with this concept of a mental age, which basically at a certain age, you should have certain mental abilities that you have developed. So with this mental age test, your level of performance is going to be associated with your chronological age. So the average 9-year-old should have the mental age of a 9-year-old. If you're below the mental age of a 9-year-old, like if you're like at the mental age of a 7-year-old, you're going to have trouble with schoolwork. So taking that one step further, we are going to get the Stanford Binet Intelligence Scale, which was Lewis Terman, who's going to adopt this test and revise it. And this basically becomes the American Intelligence Test. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your mental age, you're going to divide that by your chronological age, multiply that by 100, and that's how you get your IQ score. So have you ever wondered like how you get an IQ of whatever, the 125? Your mental age would be 10, chronological age is 8. Divide those, multiply it by 100, get 125. So that's how you would go figure out your basic IQ score. Average IQ score is 100. So 95% of the population is going to fall between 70 and 130. So that's within 2 standard deviations of your average. Okay. If you're looking at 1 standard deviation, okay, which would be 68% of the population, they're going to have scores ranging from 85 to 115. So remember, we're looking at standard deviations. It's 1 standard deviation is either 34% above the average score or the mean, or 34% below the average. When we're looking at IQ scores, anything below 130, that's like in the ridiculously high, you are super genius level smart. And then that would be 3 standard deviations, and anything 3 standard deviations below the mean is the technical classification for mental retardation. All right, another intelligence test that's widely used, actually it's the most widely used intelligence test, is the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Test, or the WAIS, which they also have a children's version. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to take 15 different subtests. Things like looking for similarities between 2 objects. You're looking at vocabulary. How do you define things? Block design, where they give you like 4 blocks and you have to like go make a picture. And then letter and number sequencing. So like ascending order, letters in alphabetical order. Can you remember the order that the numbers that I gave you go in, that kind of thing. And so basically what this does, this test will give you an overall intelligence score, but also individual scores for verbal comprehension, perceptual organization, working memory, and processing speed. So it's just a basic overall intelligence test that's going to not only give you an IQ score, but take some of these other theories of intelligence and combine them together. So that's why it tends to be the most widely used test. Oh gosh, I can't even type up here. This is supposed to be intelligence, not intelligible. Okay. All right. So, in Schoology, and I'm going to link this in the description, I'm going to have you guys go take a Mensa test. This is practice, okay? This is not meant to prove your intelligence or to give you an IQ score or anything like that. It's just to kind of see how your brain works, what you're good at, what you're not. Mensa is the group that, like, if you're in that top 3 standard deviation, it's like the organization for really, really super smart people around the world. So it's like a 30-question test. Take it, screenshot your score, and put it on this page of your notebook. All right, last thing. When we are designing tests, so intelligence tests, any kind of test, written test, verbal test, doesn't matter. We have to look at test construction to make sure that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. So first off, you have standardization. And so this is where you have uniform testing procedures so that every single time you give the test, it's done the exact same way, in the exact same conditions, exact same time parameters. Think of like every time you go take an SAT, like you have the little script that you have to read, and this is this amount of time, then you take a break, and this is this amount of time. Everything has to be uniform no matter where it's given. Okay, then your tests also have to be reliable. Are you going to keep getting consistent results? That's how you know if a test is measuring what it's supposed to. Okay, and reliability is also going to tie into validity, which if we are taking this unit test that we're going to take here in October, I'm supposed to measure how much you know about basic statistics, intelligence, that kind of thing. So if I go and I throw in questions about the brain, or if I go throw in social psychology questions, then the test becomes invalid because I'm not measuring what I'm supposed to. There's extra information that is not part of what I'm measuring. Okay, then we have to look at content validity for a test, which basically, when you are taking a driving test, okay? So when you go get your driver's license and you have the written test, but then you actually have to go out and drive on the road. That test has content validity because it samples a task that you have to routinely face, okay? So it's practical. Then you have predictive validity, and does the test, whatever kind of test it is that you're taking, does it successfully predict the behavior that it was designed to? Okay, this is also called criterion related validity. So is it predicting what it was designed to do? So the last page of your interactive notebook is for y'all to either define, draw a picture, doodle, something that's going to help y'all remember the difference between reliability, validity, content validity, and predictive validity. Once you have this done, make sure you have all the other pages in your interactive notebook done, and you are going to turn this in to me. Don't forget to take that Mensa test.